Hello, everyone, and welcome to the One Soccer Nation podcast. I'm your host, Kareem Rae. Today, I'm excited to be joined by a special guest, Chris Martinovic. Chris, thank you for being here. To kick things off, could you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, thanks, Kareem. I really appreciate being on. You do a great job with this show, and just happy to talk about our project here. But Chris Martinovic, and I'm a co-founder of Ozark United FC.
Thank you so much for taking the time again. Super excited to dive in. The first question I have is, what was the defining moment that inspired you to co-found Ozark United FC, and how did your personal journey intersect with the need for professional soccer in Northwest Arkansas?
Thanks, Kareem. I'll go back very briefly without getting into too much detail, but my upbringing and background will lead to kind of where we are today. So I grew up in New York City, in Queens. Shout out to Queens. And my parents were Croatian immigrants from Europe, first generation. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. They came to America for a better life for their family. And my dad, he knew two sports probably. One primarily was soccer. The second one was basketball. So those are the sports that I really participated in growing up. He coached me, and what I learned very quickly by just being in that environment with the European background and the culture and the fan support and the integration of the community with the team was that this is different than other sports, right? Soccer is different than other sports. And we're at the infancy stages still in the US while we're advancing, but we don't have that 200, 100 plus year history that we do in Europe. So that's where the passion for the sport really came from. And so I always thank my parents for kind of really instilling that into me. After that, I went on to play soccer in college at Seton Hall University. The reason I mentioned that is because I played for a legendary coach named Manfred Schelscheit. Manfred Schelscheit is maybe unknown to a lot of names out there, but if you know soccer, particularly in the Northeast, might know him as the godfather of U.S. soccer. So he actually has the A1 license in America. The week before, he was teaching the class with Dietmar Kramer, and then the next week he received his license from Dietmar Kramer. The next week he was teaching the class with Dietmar Kramer. Dietmar Kramer being a legendary German Bayern Munich coach that came over here in the 60s to help educate the coaches, and that's how we started. So he was A1, and I was really fortunate to play for him because more than just soccer, and my philosophy of soccer really, as I coached over the years, kind of came from him. But just an amazing believer in the sport and what the sport can do for you. And he always would say a great line. He'd say, "The things you love will love you back," and I believe that with my heart in everything that I do. And I think soccer to me has given me so much more than I've given it. And I've given it a lot, 3 knee surgeries and multiple injuries and all those things. But it's given me so much connections, relationships, contacts, networks, and a passion for sport and community that I don't think I would have necessarily had if I didn't have those kind of upbringing with my immigrant parents and then having Manny Schelscheit as a mentor. He's in his 80s now. He still coaches youth Red Bull Academy teams and just loves the game. Again, he loves it and it loves him back. And so that's the background of kind of where this comes from. And you fast forward to 2006 and I'm working in my career. I stopped playing, but I'm playing amateur, kind of men's league and coaching a lot. Pre-kids, post-kids, I loved it. Coached for 20 plus years. I had an opportunity to move to Arkansas, and a kid growing up in New Jersey at the time. So I moved from Queens, New Jersey. I didn't know anything about Arkansas. I didn't know what Bentonville was. I knew Walmart was located there because at the time in my business, Walmart was my biggest customer. And I had a great opportunity to go down there and kind of manage our business selling to Walmart. I was working for Bayer on the over-the-counter products. And so I went down there, kind of brought my family, a 6-month-old, 2-year-old, my wife, Marcy, and we didn't know where we were going. We barely knew anybody. And after about 6 months, we just fell in love with the place. We absolutely loved it. Very different than New Jersey, but the community is really unique and special. At that time in 2006, you knew the community was growing, but it wasn't growing like it is right now. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But when I got there, the one part that I missed the most about living somewhere else and in more metropolitan area was the access to pro sports. So we had zero access to pro sports in our community. It was a big SEC football, basketball, which I love. I'm just a massive sports fan. We went to all those games and enjoyed it. But what I found myself doing was traveling every weekend or every other weekend to go experience pro sports with my kids. I wanted them to be able to go to games like I went with my dad when I was growing up. And so we went to Kansas City, we went to Tulsa and Oklahoma City and Dallas and St. Louis and Memphis. And those were the kind of within a 5 hour radius, you could hit all those cities and we go watch pro sports. A lot of times soccer, but a lot of times just football, baseball, basketball, anything that we could just get different experiences. And so we enjoyed that. But I also learned that there's this really big community of people in Northwest Arkansas that were doing the same thing that I was doing. And so, kind of in my brain, I always thought, man, this would be a great opportunity as this community grows to have a professional sports team here. I didn't know how that looked. I didn't know what that meant until the year 2019. So in 2019 was the first time I kind of took that crazy idea in my head and verbalized it to somebody. And at that time, that somebody was Jake Edwards, who was the president of the USL. So Jake and I go back, and of course, everything goes back to Jersey a lot with me. And we grew up in New Jersey together. I moved there from Queens. He moved from Manchester, England. And we had these two crazy soccer-driven families with parents that loved it, and we appreciated the game. And we grew up together, same year. Birthdays are within a week of each other, and we just had a blast. He went on to James Madison. I played at Seton Hall. He went on and played about 10, 11, 12 years in England at multiple levels professionally. Had a tremendous career, played an FA Cup game, drew 0-0 at Old Trafford. Has a great picture with Rio Ferdinand up there. And so I stayed connected with him on all that and just loved his journey and lived vicariously through it a lot of ways. And when I called him up in 2019, he was the president of USL at that time. I didn't know much about the league. I didn't know any others. I just knew Jake, and I gave him the pitch on Northwest Arkansas. He kind of scoffed a little bit at the beginning, thought it was maybe too small of a market. I'm not sure that's really where we want to go right away. And so, but after a second meeting and a lot of data and facts that I put in front of him, he quickly realized that this was a pretty good opportunity for them to at least consider. So then started getting involved with the broader USL team, right? He sent an expansion team out there. At that time, it was guys like Steven Short, Matt Rita, were names in the USL that were really the original folks to get behind Northwest Arkansas and kind of give me support in my idea and what we were trying to do. So that's kind of how it started. A lot of work, and I'll kind of touch on kind of how we advanced from there probably throughout the podcast. But without Jake kind of being a relationship that I had through soccer, again, the game you love kind of loves you back. I don't think we would even be where we are today. So I'm a firm believer in that.
Amazing. And it's really good to know that you're a soccer guy. You've played the game. You know what the game's about. The beautiful game, the best sport in the world. And you guys are currently working on bringing that experience to your market. What can you share with our audience that, like, for myself, I've never been there. I didn't know about Northwest Arkansas until you guys. Um, what's so like what's so great about Northwest Arkansas that people don't know yet?
Yeah. It's a dangerous question, Kareem, because I could talk about this for the whole hour, but I'll be brief. But it's an amazing community, and the reason why most of the people love it. So what's happened over the years? It actually go back to the '90s. Walmart being the largest retailer in the world, and some days the largest company in the world based on stock value. They started to encourage and or mandate are the suppliers of Walmart, which is basically every product in America that you sell to Walmart that they sell in their stores. They wanted those facilities and offices to be located in Northwest Arkansas. So, for example, big conglomerate company like Procter and Gamble, okay, based in Cincinnati, that's their headquarters. You could argue that their second headquarters is in Bentonville, Arkansas, because I believe, don't quote me on this number, but I think their office size is something like 400 people based in Northwest Arkansas, servicing the Walmart account from sales, marketing, supply chain, finance, logistics, all kinds of avenues. And so they maybe were one of the first ones, but then you've had every other basically manufacturer of any product in the world, from Coke to Pepsi to Bayer aspirin, like I was doing for years, to Goodyear tires, to any kind of product. Everybody kind of ended up going down there, and we all did the same thing as I did, which was, hey, I'm going to go down there for 18 months, maybe 2 years, check it off on the resume and head back to headquarters. Um, Most of the people that come down there end up falling in love with it. We call it Hotel California. You check in, but you never leave. And it's a great area to raise a family. It's very safe. It's got a kind of idyllic 19 kind of 60s Americana feel to it, where you feel very safe in this community. People have that. We're in the merge of South and Midwest kind of hospitality, regionality there, but you have all these transplants. So the beautiful part about North Ozark, so you have 38 people a day moving in. That's a net number. So meaning if there's some that moving out, which there aren't a lot, but there are some that always transplant out because of business needs or whatever. You have 38 net people in every day, which is an amazing, amazing number. It's one of the fastest growing regions in America. The other factor is besides Walmart, you also have Tyson and JB Hunt and multiple other conglomerate large organizations. In addition to having Walmart, Tyson, JB Hunt, you also have the families of Walmart, Tyson, JB Hunt, who are very active and engaged in the community. And so we're very, very fortunate and very lucky to have them in our area. For example, the Walton family has been a big promoter of the arts and sciences. And Alice Walton, who's the daughter of Sam Walton, she personally financed a museum that's called Crystal Bridges in the middle of America in Bentonville, Arkansas. And she went out and bought artwork from Paris and LA and New York and all over the world and put it in Bentonville so that people can go there and access and have the ability that metropolitan markets do. Another example is biking and mountain biking. The Walton family is a significant supporter of that, and it's become quote unquote biking capital of America in Bentonville, Arkansas. And the trails are, I couldn't tell you how many miles, but 40, 50 miles of trails, on-road, off-road, that you can bike casually if you want, and you can e-bike, or you can go kind of hardcore and bike on the off trails as well. So you have this kind of ingrown organic growth, and then you add all these transplants, and then you think about our opportunity. There's no pro sports that a lot of these folks that lived in metropolitan communities were soccer fans and or at least pro sports fans, right? And maybe they came here and maybe they're not that passionate about the Razorbacks as someone who grew up here. They like it, but they really are looking for something else. And that was a kind of whole idea of where we started and why it really made a lot of sense to kind of really get this community going in this concept.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if that type of investment could be geared towards what you guys are doing, I mean, the wonders, the sky's literally the limit.
Yeah.
But saying
Yeah.
that, you guys are launching a new professional soccer club, and that's never linear. What were some of the toughest early challenges you and Warren Smith faced, and how did those experiences shape your leadership and philosophy for the club today?
Yeah. I'll start by just saying a simple phrase that I started to say a little more recently is that these projects from ground up are really, really hard and challenging. And they test your resilience and they test your persistence and they test your belief. And I say that with having a lot of momentum recently, and we're very, very bullish and excited about that. But there's moments in these kind of projects, Rhode Island's a great example. What a great organization, great leadership they have there, great people. We've been there, we've connected with them. They've advised us and helped us, as a lot of the soccer community has, right, which is a great thing. But we look at them and Louisville and Sac Republic as some great examples of kind of where we're trying to go, right? And so, but at Rhode Island FC, I think it took them 6, 7 years to get the stadium ready, right? From concept to execution. It just takes a lot of time because there's not just financial pieces to it, which is private and or public in some cases, depends on the state that you're in. There's also the location of it. And so when we first started this project, the first and most important piece was where are you going to play, right? Everything else you can figure out later on. But if you don't nail the where you're going to play question, that's a big challenge. Now, sometimes you have an existing stadium in a market that you can go to, and it's workable. You can make it work. Our vision and goal has always been that this is going to be an A+ level. We want to be top third, top three level organization in USL. That's how high our standards are. And I'll talk a little bit more about Warren Smith, later on. But we don't want to have anything minor league-ish about us. We want this to be something that our community, which views itself way bigger than we are in a positive sense, like they see the future growth. And we weren't in the top 100 communities a few years ago, and now we're in the 90s already, right? And we're going to have 1 million people just in Northwest Arkansas in the next 15-ish years, from the growth. So there's this positivity, momentum, and confidence that our community has and believes in itself. And so we want to deliver a tremendous product, and we want to put it in the best location possible. And so the location is also a big challenge. We had a different location about a year ago that was in Pinnacle Hills, which is still where we are. Pinnacle Hills is the entertainment district of Northwest Arkansas. Bars, restaurants, shopping, very centrally located right off the highway. It checks off, if you're looking to build any kind of stadium for any sport, it checks off all the boxes, right? And so we kept focusing on that while we had a lot of other property, cheaper and easily accessible property that was not in Pinnacle Hills that we could have made work, but we felt like that was going to not provide a good long term plan for the organization. And so we really were specific on Pinnacle Hills. And so as the other property, we realized it became too small, and so we had to move. And when you go through that, that's really hard, right? Because now you have control of land, which is really important to help build your project, fundraise, raise capital, raise awareness, build your fan base, do all those things. But then you go for a period of time where you're without control of land, and that puts your project in limbo. And that's kind of where we were about a year ago, year and a half ago. It was really challenging. We had the search again. We work with a great group called Colliers commercial real estate development group, and Steve Lane, who's been part of our project for about 4 or 5 years, probably feels like he's been doing it for 15 years. And they helped us identify new opportunity in the land that's, call it 600 yards away from where we were. The hard part was that it was not one piece of property like we had. We actually had to go and negotiate and make deals with 6, maybe 7, actually, I can't remember the number of individual land owners and land properties, which is a really complex and long process, right? At this point now we have 38 acres at least under control. There's some more opportunity that we're looking to extend to. And the reason why that's important is because the stadium, we're going to grow our community, right? And we don't want to start with a 15,000 seat stadium if we don't think we're going to fill that on day one. But we also don't want to start with a stadium that's too small, right? So we've announced a 5,000 seat stadium. That's kind of the minimum of what's required for U.S. soccer. We have zero risk in our eyes in terms of being able to fill that stadium. We have now 10,000 names in our database. When you look at other communities that are our size or bigger, our database is actually larger than a lot of teams that are starting to play already or kicking a ball, and we still are 2+ years away, right? And so we have a tremendous amount of community support, and that checks off one box if somebody's looking at it from an investment standpoint. Like, can you fill the seats? Because ticket sales are going to be 30 to 40% of your revenue. So that's really important. So we feel like that's a big check mark in the new facility, allows us to expand that to, hey, I mean, we don't know, Kareem, what this community looks like in 10, 15 years. So we have the opportunity to build this thing to 15,000 or more if we ever needed to. We won't do that at the beginning, of course, right? So that's one piece. The other piece of kind of recent positivity and financial support that comes is from sponsorship. So your other big portion in the USL team's P&L is not just the ticket sales, it's also sponsorships, right, and partnerships. So that could be anywhere from 30 to 40%. If you think back a few minutes ago, Kareem, when I talked about how we have so many suppliers and manufacturers that are in Northwest Arkansas and are extremely generous to the community, love partnering on programs like this, love to just help high school teams and any other clubs that we have available. There is a great opportunity for us to severely over-index on how well we can do from a partnership sponsorship standpoint. I can't say more on that, except that we have a really positive discussion, close to final agreement going on with a significant sponsor right now that, hopefully in the next few months we can start announcing some of that. But that's another, call it a big check mark. If you think about the future success of a club, is can you fill the seats? Can you cover kind of sponsorship partnership? And that gives you a really good sense of, hey, I can get, 70, 80% of my P&L covered from this. So because of my business background, I have that advantage to kind of think of these things in that terms. While being a soccer guy and loving community and passion, I also realize you got to be able to make it a financially um, um, reliable project and a long-term investment opportunity for somebody, right? And so that's what we've been working on setting up. So the new land not only gives us a stadium growth, but it also provides a multi-use development opportunity around it. So we have multiple um, settings and structures in place that we're working with a national developer that we're also getting close to finalizing an agreement with well-known national developer who loves Northwest Arkansas and sees the growth and loves our project. They're going to help us really be able to pull this together. We just pretend to be developers, but we're not really developers. But we have an idea of what is good to do around the stadium, and so now we need to get the experts in there, and that's also been a big part of what we're trying to do. And so these things just take time, right? And then while you're doing that, you're raising funds. So I always say you're building the plane while you fly it, while you operate it. It's the only way these things work. Unless you're fortunate to have a billionaire that's a massive soccer fan and loves the community, right? If you can check all three of those boxes, these things, can happen quicker, but that's pretty rare, right? Most of the time it's funded by groups and communities and local folks and individuals, and you kind of build and build and build, right? Until you get that in order. And so we've been able to do everything we've done by raising, several $1 million in capital for startup costs, right? Just to do what we do. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but our gear and our jersey and our name and our crest, and I'll talk about what that means. But that was a year-long process. We hired a great agency called Stone Ward. We did 17 listening sessions. We had 500, people, 1,000 people giving us feedback online for what they wanted this team to be called and colors and crest and represent. And so those are all kind of check marks and de-risking the project as you kind of go forward. And so you have to take these steps, and it just takes time to do it. And I'm sure there, folks in our community that wish we could just kick a ball next year. I'm leading that charge. I wish we could kick a ball tomorrow and play. But I'll say that we have more wind in our sails in the last 3 to 6 months than we've had ever in this project. And so we continue to be really bullish on worst case scenario, March 2028. That's kind of our launch.
2028 March. Yeah. I mean, time flies when you're having fun. So, I mean, time is flying. So, no, I mean, Chris, I love the approach that you guys are taking to launching this project. You guys are de-risking as much as possible to make it, to show to investors, how investable this opportunity is. With saying that, if you look at like a Portland, Maine, it's a different approach to a launch of a club. And they've done a great job with the branding, but if you look at the facility that they're currently playing at, I think it's a high school arena that they've been able to create an amazing atmosphere. And I think the
Yeah.
next stage for them is to, now have their own stadium, which you've mentioned, some clubs, that's an important piece to have. So with you guys, with, having, the 30 acres of land, building your own stadium, mixed use development, uh, uh, potentially securing a great sponsor. What are the next big boxes that you guys need to check off to continue to de-risk this investment that you guys are working on, this project?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's no one way to do this. And Kareem, you know better than others because you've probably talked to more people about this and their projects and how they started and how they failed and how they learned and how the next one worked. And so you're always learning as you go through this, but there's no one cookie cutter way, and every market's different. Some markets have a really, really strong and developed soccer background. Some markets don't have that, right? We're probably in between that. We're kind of still, growing from a soccer market standpoint. But what's happened over the last, especially 5, 10 years, is that we have been able to leverage some of the benefits of the transplants coming into our community, right? So the game has grown organically. We're helping kind of do some of that. But then we also bring tremendous amount of talent into Northwest Arkansas. You have these very successful families that move here for their careers and a better life. And they bring kids that are also very successful and driven and motivated, right? And so they have really kind of been integrated into the local soccer community very well. And kind of people are surprised a little bit when they see some of our top level teams on how we can compete at a regional and somewhat national level, right? We're still kind of expanding there, right? But we have one thing we've done that is a big kind of a besides the brand, which is really important and it represents a lot of the community. We started partnering and developing a Ozark United Academy, and so we have U13 to U19 boys. They're competing in MLS Next right now. All the teams are doing very well. We have some that are near the top. Our older teams tend to be a little bit higher ranked. Our younger teams are kind of still coming up, but there's a tremendous um, positive feeling from seeing them out there because you know how this is, Kareem, right? They get to play with our jerseys, uniform. We have 3 local sponsors that helped basically fund and drive this program: Unilever, America's Car Mart, and the Arkansas Children's Hospital. 3 amazing, very varying kind of groups and businesses that they're in, but all saw what we're trying to do and wanted to be a part of it at the grassroots level. And so these kids get to go out in these amazing jerseys. They have these big company sponsors. Unilever has a brand called Degree, and Degree is the brand name on the front of the kit, which is their deodorant. So shout out to Degree, more support for their business. But building that has been really important to us because what we don't want to do is just kind of come in and create another youth club. Like it's not really what we're looking to do. It's always a touchy area when you get into youth sports and there's definitely been some challenges. I'm not saying we did everything perfect, but when we look at what the opportunity we've given to kids that maybe they wouldn't have had, because we have the brand, we have the USL name, we have funding to help get them exposed. We had, I think there was 4 kids from Northwest Arkansas from Ozark United FC team that got called down to Houston for kind of nationals, MLS Next exposure, and they were identified as future talents, right, across 3 or 4 different age groups. Like that wouldn't have happened a year ago. So we're already seeing that impact of kind of what we're trying to do here in the community and then grow that. Besides the academy, the other great community thing that we were able to and very fortunate be part of is the Outrigger Cup. The Outrigger Cup was the first time that the Marshall Islands played a game in the world. So Marshall Islands did not have a national team until a few months ago. They played their first game ever in Springdale, Arkansas. And you might say, why the heck did they play their first game in Springdale, Arkansas? Marshall Islands are thousands of miles away. What it turns out is there's a community of Marshallese that is the largest population of Marshall Islands in the world outside of the Marshall Islands. And so they reside and they came years ago and they reside in Northwest Arkansas in Springdale. And so we've been able to link up with Lloyd, who started up that team from scratch, and we're kind of building our team from scratch. And we're able to have a international tournament in Northwest Arkansas, and our U19 boys team got to play against them in a actual tournament and recognized FIFA game. So it was the first time that Marshallese community got out, and we were able to get thousands of fans out to come watch that game. Played at Springdale High School for that, just to kind of get it going, and it was a tremendous event. We also had Turks and Caicos and one other national team there as well. I'm blanking out on the 4th team. I apologize. But our kids got to play against men. These were 25, 30, 35-year-old men that played professional soccer at national team level, and it was a tremendous experience, and our guys did great. So these are all just community building moments that all the stuff I talk about from an investment, that's sustainability of the club, right? That's really important, and you got to do that, and that's important now. But when you talk about what's happened in Heart of Pines and these really unique kind of programs, they've built from a groundswell, right? And it's awesome. It's just so great to see. You wouldn't have been able to do this 10 years ago. Like soccer, I think was not ready for that 15 years ago, especially, right? 20 for sure. I know when I was growing, like it just wasn't ready for it. You had 15, 20 MLS communities, and that was about the only thing that you could think about pro soccer, right? Now, because of USL and their vision and the Papadakis family support and now additional support that they have coming in, like it gives communities that never thought they could get pro sports an opportunity. And it's just been an amazing kind of journey to watch. And I'm just excited that we can put Northwest Arkansas on the map with soccer being a part of it.
Very nice, Chris. I didn't know you guys had youth. That's nice to hear. I'm going to be doing a bit more Googling to look into that. I think you guys have done a tremendous job on the media side. I know Wes has been leading with the podcast. But in regards to building that database of 10,000 people from market, that's tremendous. And I quickly want to touch on that aspect of the stadium, building the stadium to have a smaller size than the current database that you guys have. But for that experience, right? Fill out the seats, and then architects are building with expansion in mind already. And then leading up to as you mentioned, a few years back, trying to work on a project like this would be, who knows, 100 times harder, versus now is the perfect time. And, we have a big event. We had a big event this year, the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. Next year is the big one that happens every 4 years, the FIFA World Cup 2026, hosted by Canada, US, Mexico. And then the 2028 Olympics in LA, and then potentially a 2031 Women's World Cup hosted in the US potentially. So it's saying that, what are you guys projecting to see of the impact of the 2026 World Cup happening? What are you guys seeing it doing for your club?
It's massive. You can't overstate how important it is to have the World Cup in our country. So I'm old enough to be around in 1994 when we got the World Cup, right? And some maybe a younger fan might not realize this, but where we are in the game and where MLS was created because of the World Cup, right? In 1996, it launched. That was a mandate from FIFA that you have to create a sustainable pro league to get the World Cup, right? And so we just wouldn't be where we are. And every time you have any World Cup, you see about a 10% increase in fandom, right? That's kind of like a typical stat that just happens in the U.S. when there's a World Cup, particularly when the U.S. is playing, right? You have a jump in that. Now, when the World Cup is in your own backyard, forget it, right? Then it's off the charts. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody that goes to a game is going to become a diehard soccer fan, right? But it exposes them. It shows them. And soccer is like I kind of equate it to hockey sometimes to fans that don't know, in the sense that when you are watching hockey on TV, you might not get the same passion and feel and enjoyment as you do when you're in person. Like when you're in person at hockey, it's an amazing event. I'm not like a huge hockey guy, but I absolutely love going to hockey games. I think it's a phenomenal sport to be at in person, right? And so soccer has that kind of feel also, right? You don't get the passion, the fans chant, and the atmosphere when you're watching it on TV as much as you do when you're in person. And so I've brought people over the years. I'm sure, Kareem, you have done this too. Like, hey, so this so-and-so is not a soccer fan, wants to go to a game. Come on, let's go. And next thing you know, they're like following teams. They picked up a team in Europe. They're watching an MLS game, a USL game, right? And it's great because you just got to expose people to it. And listen, it's not for everybody, but that fandom through having Canada, Mexico, and US hosting in 2026, it's going to be, we already have the record for the largest attended World Cup, which is still the record, which is 1994. So think about that. Like no other World Cup has ever been attended more than the 1994 World Cup until 2026. It's going to blow it out the doors because now we've expanded to 48, which we can have a whole different discussion if that's good or bad or indifferent. But I kind of like the old format, but I'm a traditionalist. So, but it's going to be an amazing experience for us in Northwest Arkansas. We have two very drivable and easy markets, and I have so many friends, and they haven't been very lucky so far, but applying for tickets, which everyone I talk to says, no, I can't get them. I can't get them. I can't get them. They're submitting, and the demand is amazing, right? Which is great. But Kansas City is a 3-hour drive for us, and Dallas is about a 5-hour drive for us. And so those two markets are going to be infiltrated with Northwest Arkansas residents. That much I know. And in fact, our whole state, right? Little Rock's got a great soccer background there as well. Little Rock Rangers is a USL2 team. We know them really well. And, they've done a nice job of kind of building that organization there. But there's a kind of a quiet, I call it sometimes closet soccer fan base in Arkansas, because a lot of them moved here and then they were soccer fans where they were, and they came here and they didn't really have any team to cheer for. So they kind of started cheering for maybe Sporting KC, because that's kind of close, or maybe they went to Dallas games and cheered for them. But as we've built our project, we've uncovered these closet soccer fans, and then you find out guys that played pro soccer that came here because their career brought them here, working with Tyson or Walmart or JV Hunt, and it turns out some of them are USL, MLS level players from back in the day, and now they're coaching in our community. So it's been really amazing to see. The one thing that I will add is we have a women's college soccer program in Arkansas, the Arkansas Razorbacks. The ladies team is a top 5 or 10 team in America every single year. Colby Hale's the coach there. Great, great guy. Tremendous. He's built his program into a national powerhouse. Not only are they good and successful, which is really encouraging for us as a future soccer team, is that they draw an amazing amount of attendees to their game. And so for women's college soccer, they rank typically in the top 5 or 10 of attendees. And you're competing now with, the mega kind of traditional Notre Dame kind of, environment, right? And we get 4, 5, 6,000 people to come watch the women's college soccer team in Fayetteville during a big, game or SEC game. And so they just finished our SEC tournament a little earlier than they wanted to, but again, I'm ready for the NCAAs, and we'll probably have some home games there, which will be awesome. And we also get our supporters group. We have a really strong supporters group already. They'll come to some of these games sometimes and start doing chants and getting the drums, get the staffs going. They did that at the Outrigger Cup as well. So there's a pretty strong kind of community connection to our brand already.
Nice. I want to ask you a quick question, Chris. I'm going back a little bit. When you played in college, what position did you play?
So a good story. So I was most of my life, when I was young, I was a center forward because I was bigger, I was faster. They just threw me up top, right, and you could score. And then I kind of moved most of my youth career to center mid. So I was a box to box kind of center mid. I had good vision. Skill wise, I got better as I got older because I played all sports growing up. So I probably didn't get enough touches on the ball when I was kind of in that, 11, 12, 13-year age group. And I was a really late bloomer. So when I was going to college, I was a center midfielder. Jake was a center forward. That was the other reason I played center mid. Jake took the center forward role, and he was way better at scoring. I think like our senior year, Jake had something crazy, which for our high school, we didn't have a soccer tradition, and we had an amazing team that year. He scored 35 goals as a senior, and I had like 20 from center mid. And we probably scored 70 overall, But as I went to college, I started off as a midfielder, but I kind of went to Seton Hall as a recruited walk-on, which these things don't exist anymore. Sometimes you call them PWOs now. I could have gone to D3. I wanted to go play for Manny. I was dying to play for Manny Shellshite at Seton Hall at D1. They were nationally ranked. I was like, I'm going there. Couldn't afford it my first year. I didn't get any scholarship, and I commuted my first year. And just to make it possible for me to go there, I started getting some playing time, though, like just wherever. I played right back, left back. I played in college. I played every position. There's a cool stat for you. I played every position except for goalie. My junior year, our forwards weren't doing too well, and we were at Columbia in New York City playing a spring season game, and Manny wasn't too happy, and he said, "Who's going to play up top?" And I go, "Coach, put me up there. I'll go." Scored in the first minute, and then I saw it was my sophomore year, end of my sophomore year, and then I never stopped playing forward. So I was a striker. I led my team in scoring a junior year, and that's what I love. Afterwards, I played a little bit in the USL with a team called the Stallions. I played striker there, and then anytime I played, all my amateur leagues and men's league, I was always the forward. So, and then my kids ended up being a defender, and one ended up being a striker. So I was one out of two.
Nice. No, that's good. Good to know. I wanted to know
What about yourself?
Yeah, no, I preferred right wing. Most of my time spent there. A little bit of center mid as well in my Woodbridge days, and then ended off with the right back on the defense. Last team I played for was Naples United FC at the Paradise Coast, where FC Naples now plays, and took over there,
That's right.
which
That's
is a great team, coached by Coach Matt Poland. He also coached me as well. So yeah,
Oh,
that
that's so
was my
cool.
position. Nice. No, that's good to know. Maybe one day we'll kick a ball, or hopefully soon.
At a
2028.
slow pace. We can do
Slow
it at a slow pace these days. We don't want any injuries, brother.
But no worries. I play with older guys too. We had an event up here, and I was playing with some older folks. So we make sure we don't go. We go hard still, but we make sure everyone's okay.
Smart. Love it.
Um, coming back up to speed, um, you mentioned the growth of the women's game and how well they do in the market. Are you guys launching both men's and women's um, for Ozark United FC?
Yeah, that's 100% the goal. We couldn't be more excited about having that opportunity to do it. I talked about the youth program a little bit earlier, and we've done it now on the boys side. We've been very specific on what we want to do on the girls side. Again, we don't just want to provide another opportunity for something that already exists from a youth club in Northwest Arkansas. If we're going to do something, it needs to be bigger, it needs to be different, it needs to be something that our brand is helping develop and embrace. And so, we're working on what that looks like on the girls side. But that's in active plans. The talent that we have on the girls' side, one could actually argue that Northwest Arkansas, it may actually even exceed the boys' talent. And I say that because we have multiple college level players that have lived in Northwest Arkansas at some point. Typically, they don't end up staying here though. And so, what you see in Kareem, you know this from other communities that maybe are smaller communities, don't have access to an academy or the proper coaching, or at the time we used to see so many of our girls, unfortunately, really choose to do two things. One, commute to go play in Tulsa, which is about a 2-hour drive. So they would have to literally, you know, there's anywhere from 5, 10, 15 girls every year that were doing it, maybe a little less now, but they're still doing it. And that's a big sacrifice for families to do, right? Let's say 3 practices a week. You finish school, jump in a car, do homework in the car, go there, come back. It's 10, 11 o'clock at night, and then do it again. And then games, you're traveling. Like, it's 5 times a week, probably in the end, that you're making a really big commitment. The other angle is you either just move to go do it, right? So if you don't want to do that commute and put that, sometimes your family makes a decision to move out. And we've lost. When I coached some boys that were very talented on the Arkansas Comets, which is one of the clubs, one of the 2 biggest clubs in our community. Sporting is a club that we actually partnered with Sporting for our youth academy. But when I coached with the Comets back in the day, we had a really strong boys team, several of which went on and played college, which wasn't very frequent at the time from Arkansas. But we lost 3, 4, 5 over the years that moved to Houston. One went to Seattle. One was in Oklahoma. One was in Kansas City to go and play at a U15, U16, U17 academy level, right? And so we don't want families to have to make that choice. That's like a really big objective of ours. And so on the girls' side, that's why we want to we have some great programs from the youth teams that are in place already, but we want to make sure that we're providing the highest level possible for the girls to also stay in our community. And we still want to launch that pro team pretty close to when we launched the men's team. So we don't have those dates exactly ironed out, but our assumption is it'll be a really fast follow. The USL Super League obviously plays on the international calendar. So, for example, the men's would start in March, which is when the USL men's season would start. The women's are starting in August, right? Because they're on that international calendar. So that's the vision that we have. And Colby Hale and the Razorback coach and other women's coaches have just been an amazing supporter, believer in what we're doing. We love to just take some Lady Razorback players that played in our community. They love Northwest Arkansas, like I talked about. Everybody kind of loves it when they're there. How great would it be if we could just keep them there and play, right? Kind of almost a version of a homegrown talent, right? So that's a great vision that we have down the road for the women's.
Amazing. Um, and that's kind of one of the things I've heard with the mixed use development, projects is create a place where people work, live, and play, have fun, and also, have with the project that you guys are launching that helps also, what's the word I'm looking for? Retain talent within the market that are within other working industries, and also reduce driving expense on gas to go to other markets, as you mentioned, to have those experiences. You guys are going to be creating that. With saying that, switching gears, Northwest Arkansas has a unique blend of small town warmth and big city ambition. How are you guys capturing that identity in the club's culture, fan engagement strategy, and the current brand that you guys have Ozark United FC?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would say it's a challenging question for a lot of Northwest Arkansas residents to answer. And the reason I say it is because you have this, sometimes a decision to make in your path of what your community is going to look like. And we're a small cog in that, but we're a partner in that. Um, because you have this amazing small town home kind of feel, comfortable, safe, friendly environment. Um, but then there's no stopping this growth that's happening. You just can't stop it. Like you can go and Google and look up a couple of stats that pop up. Like Bentonville has the most cranes per person in America right now. So it's a stat that I've never heard of, but I think it was in like an Axios article, a New York Times article. It had something like 6,000 people per one crane. And it's just an indicator of growth, development, future, right? And so there's no stopping it, right? It's happening. We just, as leaders in the community, and luckily we have some great leaders in our communities that they want this growth to happen in a way that's still organic, that's controllable, right? That we have the infrastructure to support it, right? All those things are the challenges that we're dealing with. So a lot of times people will compare Northwest Arkansas to Austin 25 years ago, right? To Nashville. And it doesn't mean that that's where we're going to end up in that vein, but the concept of those are smaller kind of communities that really have blossomed into becoming bigger cities, right? And destinations for people. We actually have a lot of people that have moved now out of Austin because that city got too big for some of them. And they came here to Northwest Arkansas and told us this is kind of what it felt like 20 years ago, right? Which is kind of pretty cool. So we have this great runway where we just got to manage it the right way. But um, our club can be an ambassador of that, right? And we can help kind of just provide opportunities when people look at Northwest Arkansas in terms of wanting to move here. They're not going to maybe decide it on pro soccer if that's a team or not, but it is another check mark that says, hey, that looks like the community that I just came from, right? They have pro sports here. It's not just this kind of older town that doesn't have kind of a forward looking, prospect. Like the community is so forward looking, right? It is all about forward looking. The other thing that's really interesting is we have such a legacy of entrepreneurship in Northwest Arkansas. While you don't think of Walmart as a startup, at some point it was, right? And Sam Walton, had an amazing vision of how to provide products to Americans at a lower cost, right? And that was his concept, right? That was a simple concept, and he did it really, really well. And as you grew back in the 60s and 70s in Bentonville, there was pressure going public that they would have to move the headquarters out. And him and his family said that will never happen. Walmart will never move. And in fact, in the last year, Walmart has opened up a brand new home office that is unbelievably modern, and it's got bike trails and lakes and technology and shops and breweries and it's unreal. It's kind of like what you would think of a Google and Microsoft home office. And so this is bringing thousands of more jobs, again, more people coming into Northwest Arkansas. JB Hunt from Hunt Transportation, they were an entrepreneurial company as well, right? And then you think of Tyson and John Tyson and that family. They were an entrepreneurial company as well. They never left the region, right? They love it, but they grew up here. And so there's so much kind of this underground kind of feel of entrepreneurship. And that's now started to bubble up in our area where, I mean, you have all kinds of entrepreneurial business that are happening here. We're in that realm, but different tech companies and different startups that have now kind of come into our area. And that's it almost like a clean slate type of community, right? If you believe it and you can get support for it, you can almost achieve anything. And that's not always the case. Like there's a lot of communities are established, they're set in their ways, right? It's hard to make a big change in a bigger community. So while we don't have all the resources of a big community, we have this clean slate that is so cool because we're just ambassadors to what the community tells us, right? All those fans, 10,000 that we have in our database, they told us that they wanted this thing to be called Ozark United. They wanted this crest to represent the region, right? Represent them, represent the united part was because we have these four cities: Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, Fayetteville. Those are the four big cities. There's a whole bunch of other communities, but those are the big four that ride around Northwest Arkansas right off the highway. 49, and they wanted to get out of I'm from Bentonville, I'm from Rogers, I'm from Fayetteville. They wanted it to be I'm from Northwest Arkansas. And that was a feedback that we got a lot from our community. And so that's while people say united is such a generic soccer term, and I agree, it wasn't something that I thought we wanted to do at the beginning. It became more of a meaning for our community. And so just a great level example of kind of community and how this area has grown so much.
Very nice. Chris, I want to ask you, where do you see the growth of soccer in the next decade? Because as you mentioned, MLS has been around for 30 years, 30 plus years, and that's not even nowhere near close to where, over in Europe, the EPL has been around for 100 plus years. So I'm interested to know your perspective on the growth in the next decade for the US in
Yeah.
soccer.
Listen, I am so bullish on the sport in the country. I think it becomes a top three sport at some point. I don't know if I'm not saying it's going to be 10 years, but that's a bold statement, right? It's really hard to break into the top three of you. And I wouldn't have said that 20 years ago, 25 years ago, right? When I was playing in the early 90s and growing up, it was thought about as an immigrant sport, right? A sport that they play, right? And over there, right? And it was always kind of pushed down. And I grew up in a soccer community of New Jersey. It was a hotbed, right? You had John Harkes and Tony Miola and Tab Ramos. These are guys I know, right? They grew up in New Jersey and became national team stars. But still, it was not to the level that it is now. So I'm really bullish on it. I think a big part of that growth is the way that USL has approached expansion and the future, right? And if you weren't going to ask me, you probably were probably going to ask me at some point about Pro Rel, which leads me to kind of be even more bullish about it. I'm a big fan of it, and I'll say that with knowing a lot about the business of soccer. There's challenges to it. There's no way around it. It's not easy. You have to have a really well thought out plan. But with the way that USL's going about this, the opportunity that they've given to communities that would never have professional sports, because you're never going to have the top, an MLS, NBA, NFL, MLB. They're not going to go outside the top 30 to 35 markets in America. They're just not. It's media driven, right? That's a media driven business, right? We're a community driven business, right? I talked about our revenue model is ticket sales, sponsorship, and then you get, we're growing media every single year. But so all these communities like Northwest Arkansas, like Tulsa has a team, like, any USL market, most of them were not able if the USL didn't do what they're doing. Like, just think about that. How many kids became exposed to the sport and then having youth academies through those organizations, right? That it's just amazing. And so that's why I'm really bullish on it. The other reason is, I didn't talk a lot about it, but partnering with Warren Smith, we started our kind of agreement and partnership around 2022. We went public for the first time in 2023 with our intentions of what we wanted to do. So even though I was kind of talking about it in 2019, I honestly didn't know what to do at the beginning. I never did this before, right? So I was learning. I was talking to people. John Harkes was one of the first guys who I actually connected with, and he was at Greenville at the time, and he connected me with others, and then we just started kind of trying to build it. But when Warren came on, Warren, had a small role to play with the Portland Timbers back in the day, when they were USL, started the Sacramento River Cats, which is one of the most successful minor league baseball teams in America, then founded and started and was a president of the Sacramento Republic Football Club, which is one of the top tier teams consistently on and off the field, both financials and as well as, on the field success. And then his last project was starting up San Diego Loyal with Landon Donovan, right? Everybody knows that name. And so the guy's done it all. He's worked with USL. He's tremendous relationships up to the top of USL. They have a lot of trust in Warren does. So when Jake let me know that Warren Smith was in Northwest Arkansas, which was about 2021, right during COVID, I wondered why he was in Northwest Arkansas. He's a West Coast guy, lived out there. Like, what is he doing here? Turns out that he's been coming to Northwest Arkansas for 30 plus years already because his grandparents retired in a community in Northwest Arkansas. And then his parents did as well. So he visited 2 times a year, let's say, for multiple years, and just watched this community kind of grow and grow and grow and grow. And he always in his brain thought that this was an opportunity. And so once Jake mentioned to him what I was doing, we got together. And at the time he was with the Loyal, I said, Warren, like, I need you to come on board like now. Can we partner and do this? And he was still with the Loyal at the time. And so he couldn't, obviously. But then fast forward about a year, and that's when we kind of started to really build it, the momentum. And like, we wouldn't be where we are without what his experience, background, the way we're building it is building on Warren's playbook, right? He's done this from grassroots to kind of big major success. And so I think that's been a huge part of our success. And we are a startup, so we're small, right? It's myself and Warren, and then Wes Harris. So Wes Harris is actually our first full employee. So we hired a full employee. He's full time. He left a career. He had a career in the CPG industry, kind of doing what I was doing, was selling products to Walmart. And he was so passionate about the sport and the community that he literally changed his career and took a chance on an idea at the time, right? And came on board as our first full employee. And so, which is probably now 2 years and change that he's been kind of full time. And so he's doing all the grassroots stuff, right? Building the databases, out at events, hiring a street team, being at a community events, and all that stuff. And so, just big shout out to him and his podcast. He probably has 50 podcasts by this point. He loves doing it, and he's amazing at it.
Yeah. Nice. Um, shout out to the legend Warren Smith. We've had him on the podcast, and his story was pretty cool. I think if I remember correctly, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. But he played soccer, got an injury, then got into baseball. He was on the baseball side, and then somehow he got onto the soccer side, and he's been here on the soccer side ever since.
Yeah.
So
Kareem, if we ever get to play a game together, we should invite Warren, because we can beat him pretty easily. Even with my 3 knee surgeries, I can still get by Warren because he's had some hip replacements. So, but the joke is Warren has made a career in soccer, and he's played one game and he got hurt that one game. I think he like broke his kneecap or something and broke a bone, and that was the
yeah, that
last
was
and
it.
only game he ever played. He was actually an American football player. He played in college.
Yeah,
I think UC Davis, if I'm not mistaken. So he was a great athlete, and had a had a really interesting background. But yeah, that story is really funny
yeah,
about his soccer background. But he loves what soccer. The reason that he does what he does, and it's kind of been now ingrained into me. He loves what these teams mean and bring to the communities. Like, he's seen it. He's seen it in Sacramento. He didn't tell stories back in Portland when they got asked to kind of go help the Portland Timbers, who were really struggling at the time as a kind of pre-USL organization. And they even thought about, should we shut these guys down and just focus on baseball, because they were playing in the baseball stadium. And once they started to even talk about that, the supporters got wind that they might shut down the team, and they just blasted Warren and his team. And that was when he first learned how important the community is in soccer, more than other sports, right? They are vocal, they're active, they want to have messages, they want a voice, right? Maybe they don't know how to voice it, and this provides them an opportunity. And so that's been his message that he's always told me, and started way back, that it's a unique sport because of the fan base and the community. They connect to these players and the brand and the team more than, we equate an area sometimes to somebody who knows sports, to like SEC fandom, where you're so connected to your school and the team. That's what USL has kind of built. They're so community based, these organizations, and they're all startups, right? We all started. Even Louisville, so well established. Sacramento, so they were startups. Right? They started the same way we did, right? Rhode Island was a startup. Took 6 years to get the stadium going, right? Like, it just takes this time, but we have these great examples from leaders like Brett Johnson, the Nice family in Louisville, so many other folks that Warren has networks to, that have helped us across our project. So just such a caring community, and then people now start to reach out to me and Warren and say, hey, how are you guys doing this? And we help them, right? So it's you really pay it forward in our sport.
absolutely. Yeah, no, it's very connected, very supportive, and better yet, if we don't end up playing, I don't mind waiting until 2028. We could just, we could sit in your stadium and watch a game. Us four, me, you, Warren, and Wes, and anyone else.
You're giving me goosebumps just thinking about it, man.
There we go. And yeah,
I
shout out
can't
to
imagine. I can't imagine what that day will feel like. And we were talking to the to Dan and some of the Rhode Island folks. We went up to a game. I know you were up there as well. We went up over the summer, and the when they were talking about their feeling of the first game in the stadium, like I still get chills thinking about listening from them, their version of it, and knowing the time that we've dedicated to our project. It's going to be an amazing feeling, and more so for our community, that's just going to be so behind this. We just can't wait. But let's
well,
meet up at the World Cup if we don't get together before then.
yeah, we'll see. Somehow, some way, we'll connect in the near future. Um,
Absolutely.
and yeah, shout out to Wes Harris. He's done an amazing job on the podcast side, media side. And honestly, I've consumed quite a bit of content on you guys through that. And I don't think I've listened to anyone else, any other club, which is interesting. So I think that's a pretty unique factor. I mean, unless I'm not aware of any other club that has a podcast outlet. Um,
Amazing. Oh,
Portland,
that's great.
Maine. I've seen their documentary. I've watched a few episodes there, and then New Mexico United. I know they had a show on YouTube. I watched a few episodes, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Is there any other clubs that have a podcast or like at a startup
No,
stage wise, like where you guys are at?
it's a great question. Wes probably more aware of it than I am. We could always check it, but we've heard multiple people outside our community and inside our community that have kind of just followed along our story with the podcast, because the
Yeah,
podcast is not just about the club and what we're doing, right? It's stories about local leaders. It's stories about local soccer. Now we just had some of the kids on with our youth academy. They were on the podcast recently talking about their experiences of going to be selected and playing with some of the best players in the country down in Houston, right? Through the MLS Next program. And so then coaches that have now, because of our project, we've been able to also elevate the talent of coaches in our community. Dean Johnson is a great example. He's down here coaching our Ozark boys with Scott Marksberry, who heads up the sporting team. But these guys are college, Kevin Tello. These guys are coaches that coached in a college level environment that probably would have never come to Northwest Arkansas if we didn't have our brand kind of and our team in structure. And so you kind of have to build in a they will come approach, right? We're taking that approach in the project. We're also taking the approach in talent, right? And so that's been a massive opportunity and upside for us in terms of elevating the game. And these guys are pure, real, diehard soccer guys. Like they live it. This is their career. Dean, in fact, is going to coach in Northwest Arkansas Community College. They just kind of reestablished their athletic program. Next year, they're kicking off for the first time a men's and women's soccer team. So we've had two coaches that have come into our community that are going to coach those teams. But then they have a lot of time. Guess what? They're coaching in our youth environment as well, right? So it's just an amazing. Again, just speaks to the growth of Northwest Arkansas. There's so much happening. It's hard to keep up with sometimes.
yeah, amazing. Well, Chris, I'll ask you this last question. This will be a good one for 10 years later, looking back at this. When you look back 10 years from now, what do you hope Ozark United FC represents in the story of the U.S. soccer? And what advice would you offer to future club founders hoping to follow a similar path?
Man, I would hope that we helped build a love of the community and love of the sport. They don't always have to be both, but if we can do one or the other, if our team can help excite and make community members proud of being in Northwest Arkansas, that's a tremendous accomplishment. And then if additionally, if we can build fans of the sport and grow that game, particularly with kids that, again, maybe would never have an opportunity to go see pro soccer at a high level because they live in an area that's 3 to 5 hours away from pro soccer, pro sports. This opportunity is absolutely amazing. And when we talk to the kids and we tell them about our plans in the future, that's the part that motivates me. When I played for Manny Shelshite, my college soccer coach, he was a big believer in the game is the best teacher. He actually coined that phrase, meaning that you'll learn from playing a lot and not just drilling. You got to do the drills, you got to do it, but like playing and playing street soccer and playing pickup or even organized games in pickup games in practice, those are where you learn the most and where you play the most. And we kind of got away from that in our country in a lot of ways. And the reason I bring that up is I started to see more kids playing soccer in non-soccer field environments in Northwest Arkansas. One day I was driving through my community, which is a golf course community. So you're never going to see soccer players on the golf course, but there's a little pocket of grass that's not too far off the golf course. And I was driving by and they had garbage cans on each side. It was like 3-on-3. They all had a jersey representing some country and or national team and or club team, right? And they were playing. Nobody was around. No parents were around. The field was crooked, like it was angled towards a creek, and they were playing. And I literally, because I love this, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. I love like that part of the game, the organic part of playing the game. Like we can play the game, me and you can go play it now, right? Everyone can play the game. You don't need money to play the game, right? And so I went back and I rolled down my window. They probably thought I was going to be some guy that was going to yell at them to get off the golf course, or something like that. And I just said, awesome, guys, keep playing, go Ozark United. And they were like, yeah, Ozark United. They knew about it, right? And so it's like one little example, but it means so much to me whenever I do see that, because we wouldn't have seen that a couple years ago. So we have a small role in this community. Again, there's so many other factors of driving growth and spirit in the community, but our small role is really important. It's really passionate. You have a passionate fan base in our game. And so we take that part really, really seriously. We are just ambassadors. This is our brand, but it's the brand of the community, right? They chose it, they picked it, they developed it. And so we just need to be really good stewards of this brand going forward.
Absolutely. Where can fans or anyone that wants to know about Ozark United FC, where can they learn more?
Yeah, we have socials all over the place. We have Instagram, Facebook, clubs. We have Twitter, obviously. Their supporters group. They're called the Hellbenders. They name themselves. They have an organizational structure already. So if you're really passionate about it, you can go join them. But that's any way that you can follow Wes on Pitch to Pro is the name of the podcast. So we also have that. If you want to just sign up and get registered, kind of be in our database so that we can make sure you get updates and have feedback from us, just go to Ozark United and you can .com and you can get signed up and you'll get notifications. Eventually, maybe next year we'll start getting out, mailing lists about getting on pre-ticket sales. And just to be clear, Ozark United FC is our handle. So if you go to like Instagram, so it's Ozark United FC. So if you're going on, that'll be great. But yeah, follow. We have updates that are going to be coming out next several months, but we do posts kind of regularly. We update our youth program success. We're just trying to build a community. Join us, follow us. It takes a village. These are hard projects. We need everybody on board. The more we have, the better, right? And so pass it along. And yeah, we'd love to have you guys along this journey because it really is a community project.
Amazing. Well, Chris, I'm planting some seeds. Again, a few more years. I'm looking forward to potentially, attending a game with you guys and being at your home stadium, watching a game, watching your club play. With saying that for now, Chris, I want to thank you again for taking the time, and I truly appreciate you being on the One Soccer Nation podcast.
Kareem, you're the best, man. I appreciate the time and absolutely look forward to seeing you in Northwest Arkansas. Be careful. Once you come, you might not want to leave though. So
Thanks.